more live, YouTube. We're going to talk about the Florida FSS 377.046 and why that is so important. This is a state statute that is effectively being used to oppress panhandling, which panhandling is obviously a constitutionally protected right, very clearly recognized as such. But for, like I discussed in the last video, that's been under attack. So how are they doing this? And what can we do about it? So because panhandling is a protected right, if a cop comes up to someone who is holding a sign, passively holding a sign, and then stops that person, do you go to jail? Well, technically they should be educating people on what is now the legislation in Florida that is being used to enforce against them. Capture that on camera, get that data. This now cop is now acting under qualified immunity, being told by legislation that you cannot do a constitutionally protected right. That is grounds for a tort claim. There's actual damages because the lost wages. If you're doing a job, you're doing something that's constitutionally protected activity. It's legal. It's legitimate activity, and the government, a cop, then stops you from doing that under threat of arrest, telling you that you can't do it anymore. What you have to do to stop that from happening, you don't have to be arrested. You're being told now by a government that you cannot do it, and you have a threat of arrest. Like in the case in Alachua County with Ryan Kirby, when we were introduced to 377.046, and about 3 videos down. It was just recently. That's why this is being talked about right now. Because of that situation, did he need to get arrested? No, he didn't. The cop said on camera that he was subject to arrest for holding a sign by a roadway based on Florida statute 377.046. That action in itself is grounds to file for an injunctive order. The injunctive order prevents the political subdivision from utilizing enforcement against anyone. So the first thing you're doing, you're filing federally for an injunctive order. Now, secondly, there's lost wages. Those are actual damages. So since panhandling is a constitutional right, if the cop says you can't do this or we'll take you to jail, you do not need to go to jail, you have been threatened and you believe him or her. So then you say, I didn't do it anymore. So because I thought I was going to jail, so I didn't do it anymore. And because of that, the government has now cost me, what is your average wage in panhandling? $100, $150 a day. I mean, that's what the average wage is for panhandlers across the country. And we've been doing a lot of research for many years. Some that are just drug addicts will just grab $20, get their drugs, and then they're not back out there. So they would make less. But someone who panhandles, for a few hours a day to make enough to eat on and live on and feed their kids maybe because they happen to be a hardship or homeless, those are making around $100 a day, $150 a day, depending on where they're panhandling, how long they've been in that one place, various different data. But so that is a actual damage wage, lost wages. Now, once you've sued for lost wages and you've gotten an injunctive order against the enforcement of an unconstitutional law, such as FSS 377.046, then you're suing also for attorney's fees, obviously. And attorney's fees are going to include all the civil rights attorney, all his fees, all his everything. I mean, so it encourages the civil rights attorneys to get involved in these such cases because their attorney's fees are going to be covered, and they can be quite pricey. It also creates where the government then has to defend themselves. So they're going to have to pay fees to an attorney to take care of that defense. So you're basically, there's a punitive damage to the person who's violating your rights, regardless of the outcome of the suit. Now, we will say in suits around this, especially Florida, that have gone against panhandling, there are some of them such as that have not had a major reward monetarily. I mean, there was one not just recently, they only gave $1. I think it was Messina versus Fort Lauderdale, or maybe it was Scott versus Daytona Beach. But one of them recently just got $1 because there's no way for them to prove what wages they had lost, which I think is unfair. I think that it's unfair for you to prove how much money you make panhandling when you're homeless, but it's just another way to oppress the homeless, and they're going to do that any way they can. But I wanted to describe exactly how you go about this when people are doing sign audits out there or panhandlers in the homeless population. In these places like these municipalities and these counties, and even now in this case, the state of Florida makes a legislation that can be utilized to enforce against a constitutional right such as panhandling or soliciting for alms. Don't have to get arrested. Get it on camera that the government is telling you you're not allowed to do that because of a law, and then file for the injunctive order based on that fact and lost wages because you weren't able to do what you're legally able to do. That will encourage a civil rights attorney to look at your case because they're going to get paid no matter what, their wages, because what is going on is unconstitutional and is clear, cut, and dry between Reed versus Town of Gilbert on the sign portion of it, content-based laws, on the hand-to-hand transaction laws. We have those from Messina versus Fort Lauderdale, as well as I believe Scott versus Daytona Beach. There's been so many in Florida, I can't even remember all the cases. There are like 6 or 7 of them recently. So all of these different issues that exist in these ordinances and laws that are being created by political subdivisions have been discussed in pretty much lengthy judgments throughout the state and even the nation. And SCOTUS, Justice Clarence Thomas was the one involved in the opinion in Reed versus Town of Gilbert. So that is what I wanted to explain to people as Florida State Statute 377.046 goes into effect and now being used to oppress the homeless, at least in Alachua County, Gainesville area. We've established it as being utilized at least by Deputy Myers and Deputy, what was the other one's name? Aldis. Deputy Myers and Deputy Aldis. And then remember, Gainesville's got a new sheriff too. Sheriff Scott, Chad Scott, was the chief of police for the city of Alachua, and now he's a chief of police, or he's the sheriff of Alachua County. So moving forward, just know that this is the way to stop things like this from happening and prevent enforcement, and you do not have to go to jail in order to accomplish your tort claim. Love you all. Have a beautiful, grateful day.